And good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We're excited for our second show of the D.Gerv and Big Mo talk show. We want to remind all our listeners out there to take part in our show with your questions and comments. And we want you to know you're very important to us too. We got a lot of topics to talk about tonight. It looks like we got the NBA coming back. So let's get right to it and take it to D.Gerv and Big Mo.
Hey, good evening. How you doing, Ricky? How you doing, Paul? All our
Doing
fans
great.
out there, all our listeners.
Doing good, man.
Paul, you there, big fella?
Yep, doing great. Excited to see what happens here on Thursday with the vote of the governors for the NBA. See if we can get some real basketball on TV pretty soon.
Hey, Paul, I want to tell you and Ricky hello. Before we start, I wanted to take a little second to address the situation that's been going on since Monday. Man, I know all of us, I'm speaking for myself and Paul, I'll let you do the speaking, but as a fraternity, the NBA fraternity, our hearts go out to all the people that have been dealing with this, another crisis as we go through the pandemic, and now we have another crisis that's going on. I send all my regards to all your families out there. I hope you stay safe out there. I believe I'm all about protesting, but let's be safe about it. Let's do it smart. We've overcome, we've made progress, and we've done that by using our intelligence, our brains. Violence only begets violence. And I understand the protest, me being an African-American man, me being from Detroit, Michigan, I understand it. But I want everyone out there to stay safe. We have to do this the right way. We have to use our brains. There's power in numbers. And I just want to send my regards out there to those that have been injured or your family members and say, let's do this together. If we work together, this too we shall overcome.
Can't say it much better than that, D. Yeah, it's a tough time, especially coming out of the COVID virus. We're still in the middle of that. And, families are struggling all over the country, all over the world. And, we understand protests and the right to protest. And, but at the same time, like you said, you need to do it in a peaceful way. Looting and hurting and burning down buildings of other family members that have businesses that are no longer there is not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is get in numbers like you are during the day and protest the way you do during the day and get your voices heard. But then, the violence and the fires, that's not what it's all about. And that's not honoring what they're trying to do. So we want everybody to stay safe and hopefully more level heads will prevail and we can move forward like you said and make more progress in the right direction.
And we're hoping we can take you guys' mind off this just for a few minutes, talk a little NBA basketball. And guys, it looks like we have a lot to talk about with the possible start of the season. Derrick, why don't you get us started on that?
I don't know where to start. I'm so excited. We keep hearing different stories, and I'm gonna let Paul cover most of it because he's covered this in depth as well. We're talking about starting back up. They have a big meeting Thursday, June 4th. This meeting is going to tell a lot about what's going to be done as far as the format. And I'm gonna tell you this, Ricky, as a guy that's been missing basketball since I believe March the 11th, man, I'm so pumped up just to hear them talking about the game of basketball. So I think I still believe in Adam Silver. I think they're getting things worked out. Thursday is a big day, and I'm ready to go. Let's go NBA.
Yeah, I think obviously, Adam's doing a great job, and the owners they've been communicating. And I think what Adam Silver does a great job of is communicating with the players and the Players Association, and talking to them and seeing how they feel comfortable, seeing how they'll feel the right way to come back is because we want basketball and we want them to be safe, as well as there's referees, there's coaches, there's all that. Obviously, there's not going to be fans in the stands, but the TV, entertainment value. And I was watching ESPN today, and a former player, I can't remember who it was mentioning, we need sports right now. We need the game of basketball right now more than ever. And hopefully they'll get that vote on Thursday. I think from what everybody's saying, it will be a positive vote to move forward. The format is, a little iffy. We don't know yet. There's, just playoffs, regular season games, 20 teams, 22 teams, all that is going to be settled. And I heard a current player on ESPN say, we don't care. Let's just play, do something. And I think something will happen really very quickly. Once that vote goes in on Thursday, I think they'll spend probably 2 weeks. Players are now getting back into their markets because their practice facilities are open now, and they're open there for individual workouts. So they're doing that. But you have to remember, there's players overseas that have to come home, have to come back here. And I'm not positive, but I think it's a 14-day quarantine if you come back into the country. So they have to deal with that. So you could see, getting the vote Thursday, given about 2 weeks to get everybody situated and back in the country, in their towns, and then start practicing probably a 2 or 3 week training camp. And then from what it sounds like, everyone going to Orlando to play in the bubble. Once you get in that bubble, you're tested, and you're supposed to get your food and all the entertainments in that bubble, and then get things playing pretty soon. If you're looking at July 2 or 4 or something like that to get everybody to Orlando and start playing, you can have some regular season games and some playoffs, and you can get the season done by late August. Because the other concern is when you finish late, the other end of that is next season. And, you have to have enough time for people to recuperate and to rest their bodies. And I think, a 3-month recuperation time where you start around Christmas and December, start next season. I think that's, in my opinion, that's doable, and you can do that. Whether it's a play-in and all the teams get to play in, or 22 teams, I think the important thing is they decide quickly, get it done quickly, and moving the motion done so we can get it done in a timely manner, so the next season is not interrupted as much as it could be. I also heard another thing today that because of they're talking about teams that are not 6 games from the playoffs not being involved in this new season, that they would like either a tournament or a real summer league or some training in the summer.
Excuse me.
So they're not left 9 months without seeing their players. So I think the NBA is very smart, and they're covering all their bases. And I'm hoping for a good vote on Thursday, and we can start seeing some real live basketball in about 3 weeks or whatever that time frame is. I mean, I'm getting to like Korean baseball a little bit more, but I'm tired of watching it. I want basketball.
Wait. Hey, Paul, you and that, I've become a cornhole pro almost.
Hey, this is the D.Gerv and Big Mo show featuring former NBA players Paul Mokeki and Derrick Gervin. One of the things that Paul mentioned was the fact no fans will be in the stands. But I'm sure that isn't as big a problem as people may think. Derrick and then Paul.
It's a problem, Ricky, until that layup line goes off. Once that buzzer goes off, the players' focus goes strictly to the game. I actually watched a soccer game, the other day. And there's a pro soccer game, and they had cardboard fans in stands. That's what they did. And they had the music blaring like it was a regular game, a regular event. And that's what it is when you have the fans. It's an event. It becomes a spectacle. But for the athletes, it's a game. It's just another game on your schedule. And that's how we usually approach these games. I'm not worried about the crowd. I'm sure Paul attests to the same thing. When we practice, Ricky, we went out on the court by ourselves. Maybe even at some point it was even a peach basket a few times. And I never ever worried about the crowd. All I worried about was going out there trying to become the best player that I could be. And when you start playing these games, it doesn't really matter if the fans are in the stands. We play for the love of the game. And that's the only reason I played. I bleed this game. So as long as they have a basket on each end and score is 94 by 50, I'm good to go, whether there are fans there or not.
Yeah, that's right on point, D. I mean, every one of the old players like me, younger, older guys like you, and the guys now have grown. You grow up playing on the playground in an open gym. Play now. AAU games where there's 50 people there. That's just the way it is. And once the competitiveness starts and kicks in, these guys are playing for a championship. They're playing. You don't think the Lakers and LeBron and the team that the Clippers put together and the Milwaukee Bucks that want to show that they belong in the finals, they're going to be playing at a high level. And like you said, once the jump ball goes up and you get the blood flowing, there's going to be super competitiveness. And even maybe, you probably, like when your game's on TV and people are watching, you lift it up a level. Well, now, it's going to be one of the only sports on live TV. So there's going to be hundreds of millions of people watching. So, your competitiveness and your juices flow even more. I mean, I can, as personal experience coaching in the D League, in the NBA Development League, which is now the G League, a while back, you'll get a kick out of this. We played the Lakers team, their D League team, before their games at Staples Center. So we would play at 3:30 in the afternoon, and a 20,000 seat arena. There's 20 people there. It was eerie. It was like spooky. You could hear the ball bounce and everything. But once we started playing, all the players, everybody, they forgot about that. They just played the game like it's supposed to be played. And there's no doubt in my mind that these guys will play at a high level, fans or no fans.
Ricky, these are when your Patty Mill type guys are important. You remember the guys, Nick Van Exel, Larry Spriggs. You remember those guys, Paul? They used to wave the towels, and that's what it's going to be today. It's going to be the motivation is going to come from the family within, the players that are together every day, that are in that locker room every day, and you being able to trick someone. And to hear, and I'm gonna say with my brother because he says it very well. George always talks about tricking the guy, and the crowd is going, hoo-hoo. That's all we want. And if you have your friends doing that on the bench, that's just enough motivation that you need to get through the game.
Unfortunately, I think he did that to me a couple times. If I
remember. Hey, Paul. Speaking of motivation. The players have a little motivation besides just the game. They have a little motivation on the business end, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you take the money side out of it a little bit, but it's just looming over what's going on. I mean, the TV money, like we talked about last week, is $24 billion. It's a 9-year deal, and that's still up for grabs. On May 15th, was the first paycheck the players in the league voted to take 25% pay cut. Now, for people at home, for guys that are making millions of dollars, it's like no big deal, but it adds up and it continues to add up. Today, June 1 was the next paycheck, and then June 15th is going to be the next paycheck. And as a group, NBA players are losing $40 million every 2 weeks. So, they have incentive to come back and play. The NBA has incentive to come back and play. And the other thing is that money, that 25% that's been taken out of their paychecks, is put in escrow. So if they play the rest of the season or most of it in playoffs, they will eventually get that money back. And in the long run, we play the game because we love it, but it's also big, big business, and money is all in that.
Well said there, Mr. Mokeki.
Did you want to add on to that, Derrick?
No, he covered after that. I mean, I would look like a fool trying to piggyback off after that. Paul covered it very well.
Yeah, this is the D.Gerv and Big Mo talk show starring Derrick Gervin and Paul Mokeki. All our viewers out there on our Facebook Live website, please send us your questions and comments. We would certainly love to hear them here on the D.Gerv and Big Mo talk show. We're going to have a segment dedicated just to you guys so you can get your questions in to these two NBA veterans. Just a couple more things about the start of the season. We kind of touched on it last week about who it favored and who it didn't. As a former coach, Paul, does the coaching strategy change, or is that just going to depend on how they set this up? Can you really explain that now?
Well, in a regular season like they did preseason, you have a month, 5 weeks to get your practices in, get your things in. You're playing preseason games. You're learning about players, learning about plays. Now it's going to be in a condensed time. Granted, you're not starting from the scratch, but you need to renew everything that you taught to the players. They've been at home by themselves, so Zoom is great, but it doesn't transfer to practice time on the practice court. So I think. Like we did, I keep talking about my experience in the D League, G League. Shoot, we had 10 days to have all our preseason, get a preseason game in, and get ready to go. So the NBA teams are going to be more along that time frame. So you have to go through things quickly. Players have to pick it up quickly, and so you're ready to go. Because at this point, you can't afford to lose a game because you're not in shape. You don't know your system. Players aren't on the same page, and coaches and players aren't on the same page. Because you lose 1 or 2 games, and that's like 10 or 15 in a regular season. And we talked last time about how the younger players hit the wall, the rookie wall, so they've had a chance to recover and maybe gain it back. But I believe that the veteran teams, the Lakers, the Clippers, teams that have been together, have veterans that know what they're doing, will have an advantage. And that in conjunction with a veteran coach that knows what they're doing, because you have to be right on point as a coach or you'll fall behind. So, let's talk about the Clippers. I mean, Doc Rivers, one of the best coaches out there, been there, done that, was a player, communicates great with his players, and has veteran players on that team that they put together. I like their chances because of that makeup right there.
Hey, Ricky, let me say a little bit about that right quick. You know what bothers me? You got these young players, and this is what kind of scares me. And Paul, you can tell me what you think. We were just ramping it up. We were going down to the last 20 games. And so, everything changes. The mindset changes. What I hope they play some games, because a lot of these young players, they don't really know what the fire is like. They were just getting ready to find out how important every single game was. And that's what I think the only thing that could be missed if they didn't give them ample time to work out. That's tough. Playoff, as you know, that's a totally different environment. And some of these guys, I don't think were prepared for this. So I'm hoping they've spent time over this break communicating with some of the veterans. And some of the veterans were trying to prepare them as well as they can, because they get ready to go now where every play counts. LeBron James might smile during the season, Kawhi and those guys, but now it's time to strap it on, as they say, and bring your A game. And that's what I'm hoping they can help these young guys with before we go into this big run that they get ready to encounter.
Yeah, for sure. And they don't have time to wait. My pet peeve is, and this is even more in play right now, my bad doesn't work anymore. Oh, my bad. No, those my bads cost you a game. And that could cost you a playoff series. So I think, Derrick, I think they'll play 5 or 6 regular season games, which will be really considered really like preseason games before they get right into the playoffs. And that'll help a little bit. But like you just said, you hit it right on the head. That 20-game time after the All-Star break and the teams are gearing up for the playoffs, that's 2 months of gearing it up and getting ready to be thrown into the fire, like you said. Now it's going to be 3 weeks. So it's going to be interesting. It's affecting everything that's happening in the game that all of these players, coaches, referees have never been through before. So it's going to be there's going to be some great stories and storylines going on in the if we keep our fingers crossed and the season starts pretty soon.
Yeah. Hey guys, I want to go to our Facebook Live page. We got a question and comment from Todd. Todd McKillop, I believe. Todd. Yeah, I think that's Todd McKillop. Todd, I hope I didn't mess your name up too bad. But here's your statement. Hi guys, the NBA will weather this storm out. But how devastating do you think this will be to the smaller pro leagues around the USA and Canada? And it's great to hear your voice, Paul. We'll start with Paul since he said hello to you.
He's one of my former assistants up there. He's a good man. What was the question, Ricky, of how it affects other leagues? Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, and the smaller leagues, the minor leagues.
Yeah, like he's speaking, he's up in Canada, he's speaking to the NBL Canada up there. And from what I hear, I don't think any smaller leagues like that are coming back. Even the G League, they're not going to come back this year is what I understand. Taiwan was a league that continued to play and had their finals about a month ago. But other than that, the China League tried to open and closed it back up. I think, from what I understand, they'll just move on to the next season and hopefully have that season start on time. Is my feeling of what'll happen to these to the lower level leagues.
Derrick?
I think it affects everything that's going on today. What the sad part is it's not even in just basketball. If you look at the minor leagues in baseball, they've laid off hundreds of players, minor league players. So it's affecting everyone involved. All we can do is try to stay positive. There are some good signs. Some people are pessimists, and then you have the optimists. I'm an optimist. This gives all the athletes time to sit back and reevaluate, Ricky, because as you know, we talk a lot about how your career can come to an end quickly. This is a wake-up call for everyone that never take these games for granted. Anything can happen, and that's what we're experiencing right now. So I don't look at it all as doom and gloom. I look at it as sit back, reflect time, and appreciate the sport that you've been allowed to, that God gave you a gift to play something at the highest level. Now this gives you an opportunity to sit back and reflect, really appreciate how blessed you've been to do something that millions of people on this earth wish they could do and haven't had the capabilities of doing. So it's just reflection time.
And one thing that professional athletes, and we've seen it now during the pandemic and all of this, traditionally, professional athletes have been generous with their platforms, with their monies, foundations. The bad thing is you guys hardly ever get credit for it. Not that you're seeking credit, but we in the media, as writers, we always write about, you got called speeding, and not necessarily the generosity that I've seen over the years from 95% of the pro athletes that are out there. Paul, what about that? Do you agree with that in terms of how pro athletes are treated?
Yeah, I mean, it's sorry, but you were right. I mean, it's you do something bad, it's on the front page. You do something good, it's on the last page, if any page. So,
there you go. Exactly.
And that's the way it's always been, and that's what I try to tell players that are trying to move up in their careers, whether it's college or G League, D League, or the Canadian League. Everything you do is being watched, and everything is being videotaped. Everyone has a camera now. It's their phone. Back in the day, nobody had phones with cameras on them or anything. So every time someone can catch you doing something bad, it's going to be out there. And every time you do something good, it probably won't be covered, which is, that's just the way it is. And my thought is you shouldn't be doing good things, just to get noticed anyway. But at the same time, it would be nice to be noticed. So, and I think, like Dee said, as being an optimist, even through these tough times with the pandemic and now the protests, I'm seeing NBA players step up and letting their voice be heard, and I see them saying, let's protest like we have the right to, but let's be safe. Let's not burn down cities. And if anything that this craziness has brought up is letting those type of players and people shine.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question this time. You mentioned it, Derrick, I think Derrick, you mentioned it earlier about, and we always hear the regular season and the playoff. And something Paul said really got me. It's no more my bags. Can you guys talk about the jump from regular season to the playoffs? And is it that big of a jump?
Paul, let me take this one because you play longer than me in the NBA. I tell you this, Ricky, my only championship that I ever won in my professional 15-year career was in the CBA, the Continental Basketball Association. And at that time, I was playing with lacrosse, and Flip Saunders was the coach. Rest in peace, Flip. We did everything. What Flip did is Flip prepared us. I got traded there like mid-season. And when I got there, it was a totally different atmosphere. I started off in Fort Wayne, and I ended up in lacrosse like night and day. We had a good program in Fort Wayne, but we had young players. I get to lacrosse. It was a totally different thing. Paul, everything we did was mapped out, and we stuck to our practice schedule, to the script. And what that did in turn is it made us a better team. It brought camaraderie. All the guys started becoming close. We were all in it as a unit. Man, I always talk about this fist right here. Paul, there's the fingers, spread fingers. I look at that as a separate, as a losing team, because you got a bunch of individual players. And I look at this fist as a team that's bonded together, and that's a team that wins. So when you start talking about going down to the playoffs, all the mistakes, you got to shake them off. This is not the pity hour. Coach doesn't want to hear your excuses. He might hear a few of your excuses during the regular season, but as Paul's going to tell you, when it comes to playoff time, you have one job. If you make a mistake, you stay positive, you shake it off, and you get your butt back on defense. And that's what all these kids in the AAU and all these different leagues need to understand. You always prepare to do your best. And you don't wait until the playoffs to turn it on. You do it from the beginning. So it's practicing good habits. But the playoffs is something that's hard to explain, but you better be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, man, Flip Saunders, God rest his soul. What a great coach. What a great guy. I mean, just spectacular. And that's where coming up like you did to be able to play with someone like that early in your career is so valuable to players. I'm sorry, but there's so many young coaches in the G League and the D League and all that stuff, and less of us older guys that have been there and done that. And Flip was just just phenomenal, and preparing. That's part of what. Let's go back to the Last Dance, right? MJ got on his players in practice mercilessly, just because he was preparing them for what was going to come. So if you can't handle it now, you're not going to be handling it then. And you have to prepare for the playoffs. And no matter how good you prepare for the playoffs, there's going to be twists and turns you never saw coming. So you better be prepared to the best you can. And the competition during the season is for playoff spots and playing and all that stuff. In the playoffs, it's all about winning, getting through the next game, getting through the next series. And there is no preparation for that. It's different. I'm sorry, it is. When I was with the Dallas Mavericks and we went to the NBA Finals, you could just see it. You're at shoot around and at practice or before the game, after the game. In the first round, there's, 40, 50 guys, reporters. In the second round, there's, 100, 150. In the West Finals, there's 500, 600. And you get to the NBA Finals, you go to shoot around, there's 2,000 reporters from all over the world there. So the young players have to learn how to adjust to that. It's like in college, you play the regular season and then the playoffs, one loss and you're done. And you get to the Final Four and you go out to your practice and there's 10,000 people in the stands. You never saw that before. But like Dee said, the better you can prepare during the season and during practice, the better you'll be able to handle all those other situations. And the playoffs, I've been in a lot of playoff series. I had count for a while how many playoff games I've played, and series I was in, and they're all different, and they're all something special. That's for sure.
Hey, Big Mo, Kayvon Zahedi says hello. Sending you a shout out. Said hope all is well with you. Hey, Paul, I want you to start with this, and Derrick, you can follow up because you were talking about coaching. What are some of the characteristics of a great coach and characteristics of a so-so coach?
Well, I think today's game, we talked last week about how it's different. When I played, coach told you go through a wall, you just went through a wall. Now you have to tell a player to go through a wall, you got to tell them why. So it's just a different mentality, and players are different, and the way they come up through the ranks is different. People don't realize, in the professional level, G League, D League, even up in Canada, especially in the NBA, assistant coaches are cool uncles or older brothers to the players, right? Communicating with them. A head coach is everything. He's a head coach. He's a father figure to some. He's a disciplinarian to others. He's a shoulder to cry on to some. And having all that responsibility of getting everybody on the same page is very, very difficult job. And the coaches. I mean, my favorite guys now, Steve Kerr, Popovich, those guys just have a way about themselves that they have respect, they have experience, they have communication skills, they know the game in and out. If you don't know the game in and out as a coach, the players will see that in the first hour of practice, and then they won't have your respect.
Whoa.
And that's just, and you have to be able to communicate to different people different ways, and get the best out of them. Sometimes you got to know, just like a parent, I think you got to know when you have to pat someone on the back or kick them in the butt. There's all different ways, and there's different ways to do it. And for any players to think that coaches and teams treat players all the same is not true. It never happens. Everybody is different. And, the star players get better, get breaks more, and that's just the way it is. And if you can't deal with it, you're going to struggle. But I think the best coaches today are the coaches that know their game, are very, very organized, but are still flexible in that organization, if that makes sense. And then have communication skills and relationship skills. It's all about relationships. If you're a head coach in the NBA and your players don't want to play for you, you will be fired in months. You will be gone. It's just the way it is. So there's the great coaches can do that and balance that. And people don't understand the hours and hours of video coaches watch, the hours and hours of time in their office, like I am right now, just thinking about practice plans and game plans and how do I get the best out of this player? How does this play work? And the coaches that can do all that, like the Steve Kerrs and the Popoviches and the Doc Rivers, are the best coaches.
Well, it's a different time today, Ricky. All our listeners, time to change. Back in our day, Most of the players that played were already in their 20s, 22, 23 years old, because the guys were going to school for 3-4 years then. So when it came to the NBA time, you were already kind of expected to know the ropes pretty much. And so you came in, it was different then. We didn't have the social media. So you basically, the guys, back then, guys didn't speak out, Paul, as you know. Today we have the social media, and when guys have like anxiety issues like Kevin Love, players like that, today they can speak out, and they have the social media and all these avenues. Back then, sometimes players, we tried to handle things by ourselves. And, you know, it's a total different era. Back then, we were looked at, you didn't want to be looked at as I guess, as a wimp. So a lot of things you tried to handle yourself. So you might have kept a lot of things in. Today, guys are more vocal. They're more friends. They play on the other teams, but they keep in contact. And I think you're just seeing the scope, how it's changed. A lot of guys today are 18 years old. So they need guidance away from the court. And sometimes what the coaches usually do is they'll appoint these assistant coaches, like Paul said, guys that are like big brothers, that are like uncles to you. And those today are the guys that are very important. They try to lead you the right way. And this is what people need to understand about the game of basketball. You spend more time with your teammates than you do with your family during the season. So you gotta try to have, I'm not saying you have to kumbaya and all that, but the better relationship you can have with these players, it only helps make your organization stronger, helps make your team stronger, it helps make you stronger. We all play for legacies in this game. And I'm a guy that believes that there's, like I said earlier, power in numbers. So I need Paul on my side. So I need to bond with him. And we try to figure out ways that we can maximize each other's abilities, each other's skill set to get the best of the team. And that's the things today that a lot of times, don't be an individual player, because there is no I in team, as you know. As Kobe said, there's an I in win.
I win.
But I have to remind people there is no I in team. So go out and just try to prepare yourselves for this game. I love the game of basketball. And what I like about this show is it gives Paul and myself, Ricky, and you as well, an avenue to talk about this game and also talk about the game of life and try to uplift some people out there that might need it that we're not even aware of, some people that we could help.
Hey, that's good stuff, D. I want to go back to you.
Let me hit on that.
Okay, go ahead.
And to reiterate all that, the game has been changing for years now. The game has been changing for 20, 25 years. And it started with AAU and playing all those games and ending up with players moving around, playing on their Nike team or whatever, and then playing with better players, and then going as a group to another team and playing with that team, and then having friendships and relationships on the court and combining and going to a college and play together on a college team. And now NBA teams are, like D said, are much the same. You know, the Miami Heat was built like that. You know, the Lakers are now, you know, with players are communicating more within themselves and getting themselves into better situations. You know, so it's been changing for a long time.
And Paul, I wanted to stay with you here because you were talking about the characteristics of a coach and the principles that made them strong or weak. Is it better to be better with the relationship and managing the egos and players, or better to be the X and O guy? Or you got to be both?
Hey, Paul, wait, before you answer, Paul, Ricky, can I say something about that before you even step in?
Yep.
I want to tell you a story, and it's quick. Ricky, there's been one NBA coach, and I'll say, I don't want to say his name, but I will. Rick Carlisle. Rick was my assistant coach in New Jersey. And Paul, as you know, Rick won 50 games in Detroit. He was fired. 50 and 32. Rick moved on to the Indiana Pacers. He won 50 games with Indiana, and he was fired. And I'm telling you, last year I went to the game here when the Spurs played Dallas. I was sitting right behind the Dallas Mavericks bench, and I was allowed to go out on the floor. I talked to Rick, Paul. We didn't have a very good relationship when he was my assistant with the Nets. I talked to Rick. Rick is the perfect guy that we're talking about. Transformation. The reason he was fired is because the word was he didn't. He was the type coach would be in the elevator with his players, and I'm being honest, the African American players. This was the word. You could be in the elevator with Rick, he wouldn't even speak to you. So the word gets out. I look at Rick now, he's made the transformation. And you can see he's become, his whole disposition has changed. And the reason I had to bring Rick up is because I'm proud to see someone that started off possibly stubborn. He grew up in the Larry Bird, Bill Fitch era. And to see Rick change for the betterment of himself and for his team and for this era, I had to commend him because that's what it's about, transformation. And so I want to give kudos to Rick Carlisle for becoming a better player, better person, and a better coach.
Yeah, I can piggyback on that because I scouted him when he was in Indiana, coaching in Indiana. And he ran, as scouts, we scout every play and every play call. We're advanced scouts. So we go ahead of the team and we watch the team we're going to play, and we get their sets and their calls and their strategies and their tendencies. And I used to hate scouting Rick Carlisle's team because he ran every frickin' play he had in the book. It was like, oh, I haven't run 22 side yet, so I'll run that. So you got to write that down. Most coaches have, hundreds of plays, but they keep it, their favorite 20 or whatever. Rick did all of them. And I could see it and I could hear it because I was on the court scouting. Players got frustrated. Man, we got to run another play. And then when he went to Dallas, and I watched on TV the Dallas games, and of course you had Dirk and some other players, and it was more of the flow of the game. He wasn't calling plays all the time, so he adapted that way also. And here's a couple other things. Rick Carlisle could be on an elevator with about anybody and not say anything to him. Just the way he was. And it's good to see he got better. And you cannot count on a big chalkboard how many coaches of the year got fired the next year. It's unbelievable. Avery Johnson, Rick, all these guys got fired.
Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, I was getting that, man.
If you get coach of the year, okay, this is cool. You got just as good a chance of being fired in the NBA the next year as you do anybody. And a lot of that is now that, it's rightful or whatever. Players run the NBA now. Back in the day, coaches ran the NBA. Don Nelson,
George Karl.
Yeah, George Karl, Bill Fitch, guys like that. And the team was their team. Now coaches are, running the team, but they're at the whim of the players. If you have star players that don't like you, the owner of a team has two decisions. Do I want to fire and get rid of 5 of my players that make $50 million, or my head coach that makes $5 million? Guess who's going to go? So,
there you go. There you go. Hey, Paul, you talked about all the plays Carlisle ran. Chuck Daly was just the opposite of that when he was coaching the Pistons, wasn't he? Didn't he just run stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you guys saw him. I mean, he had the over-under play where those guys were running, Prince and those guys were running over and under and doing that, and then it went into kind of open basketball, what you're seeing now. But, you have plays as a coach. What I did is I had plays to get me in situations I wanted with the right players I wanted to put in those situations. So if I had a post-up guy, good post-up guy, I had plays for that. Good high post guy, plays for that. Good shooters, I needed to get them open. Guys in the open court, I needed to get them to open court with movement on the weak side. So there's many, many plays. I mean, I used to have in my file cabinet over here books this thick of plays. I had all, Larry Brown's plays, Popovich plays, the triangle. I had all that, diagrams and everything. And the game has gone away from that because the flow of the game is getting better. And players, for the most part, when they get older, are getting higher IQs where they can perform that way.
Yeah, hey, I definitely think we should revisit this because I love hearing about those finer points of the game. But I'm also interested to hear about the upcoming NBA draft and get you guys thoughts on the draft and how the draft is going to be during the period of COVID, because you can't go see the guys. You can't get your hands on them there, working out.
Well, the good thing is a lot of these, and you and I and Paul talked a little bit last night about it. The good thing is you're trusting these coaches now. You're looking at some of the players and some of the coaches they've been around, their role models, their examples. And you have to go out. It doesn't seem to be too many bad guys in this draft, if at all. We keep up with what's going on today. Everything's social media. So if some of these guys were having problems off the court, away from the floor, we would hear about it. But I'm happy to see these young guys. They got like 14 to 15 guys that are rated really high. And the funny thing is, really, is we're going into a new era totally, because most of the draft that's coming out this year, you can't even name some of these guys. And you got some guys that are coming out that can really play. I'm going to name one guy that's moved up. He's continued to move up in the draft, and I'm glad this break didn't hurt him. Obi Toppin from Dayton. For me, he's the best player. Well, I won't say the best player. How about the player that's most ready to play now? So I see him coming out of Dayton. He actually won Player of the Year this year. I see him as being ready. LaMelo Ball is on his way out. And I think out of the whole draft, the guy that's going to be the biggest question mark is LaMelo Ball because of the things that we've seen occur with his dad in the past. So the biggest question mark, I think, would be him. I would love to see, me personally, I would love to see LaMelo Ball get a chance to go in New York and play and shine and see if some of the things we've heard about him, his potential, I would like to see him have a chance to reach that. And what better place than the opposite where dad was out on the West Coast, give him an opportunity to go shine on the East Coast. So that would be, for me, my biggest guy that I want to see get an opportunity. Obi Toppin and LaMelo Ball are the two guys for me out of this draft.
Paul, I'm really interested to hear you. You've been in those draft rooms and you scouted possible draft picks. Talk to us about what you think about the draft.
Well, first of all, there are direct flights from LA to New York, so Papa Ball will be in New York. And, it's interesting that he moved up in the draft, but he was out of country. He was in Australia playing, and his numbers weren't great. And then he got hurt. So I think this puts a big question mark on him because of the virus now. He's not going places for individual workouts. And in individual workouts, you can't tell if the guy's going to be a great player, but you can get a feel for, his basketball IQ, his relationship, his toughness. In Dallas, when we did the preseason workouts, we notoriously had a drill at the end of an hour-and-a-half workout where we put them on 2-on-2 full court and push the ball, don't have to, just to see, who's in better shape, but also to see who's going to quit on you, who's going to fight through how tired he is. So the teams aren't going to be able to have that kind of hands-on vision of those guys and get to see them eye to eye. Zoom is different than eye to eye. So guys moving up and down this draft, like Wiseman from Memphis, the 7-1 kid, who was supposedly the first pick, is now moving down for whatever reason.
Up, down.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, being in NBA draft rooms, everything is considered with social media, and they know who your AAU coach was. They talk to your high school coaches that get coached against you in high school, players that played against you, your high school teammates, your girlfriends. They do all that research, let alone all the x-rays and MRIs. When I was in the draft room, that kind of really surprised me, because we talk about a player and the doctor comes up and puts all the MRIs and everything on the board. So you can see, does he have a stress fracture, or is his knees okay? So there's nothing that's going to be hidden. The only thing the virus is changing is the hands-on, eye-to-eye conversations and the workouts where most players don't go down in those individual workouts, but some players do go up, and go up a lot, because coaching staffs kind of fall in love with the player when they see him on the court and doing their drills, and then they talk to him and they take him out to dinner. You know, they maybe get a better feel. So I think the virus is going to affect some of the mid-level guys that probably could have moved up in the
Paul,
draft.
is Papa Ball in those conversations in the draft room?
What's that?
His personality is LeVar Ball in those conversations in the draft room because of his personality?
Oh yeah, I mean, let's face it. You know, coaching the Lakers wasn't fun when Ball was on the team, was it? Because his dad was complaining the whole time. So, you know, that's a different animal. Do you want to? You're going to deal with it. Do you want to deal with it? And you know, the NBA is the NBA, and it's a higher level. But at the same point, you know, if you have someone that's interrupting something that you're trying to build, so you're trying to build a team, a winning team, everybody's on the same page, and someone in the peripheral out there related to one of the players on your team is tearing it apart, that's a decision you're going to have to make of whether you want to deal with that or not. So, you know, I don't know them that well, but I know that dealing with players' personalities that you bring into a team is huge, huge.
Derrick?
Well, no, he covered it. You setting a standard. The player, you got it. What's important today, and I talk about it all the time, Ricky. And you know, I write a lot of posts on Facebook. Character is what we're going to be remembered for, and that also means in the sports world. These guys are trusting you. They're spending millions of dollars on you and trusting you to lead their franchise. So you're going to become the face of the franchise. People aren't giving away money today. They want you to go out there and earn it. And a lot of times today, they're trying to give you 5-year contracts. So they're trying to really, really make you a face of the franchise. First thing you have to do is to represent your organization in a high manner. And I'm going to show you how things are funny. Mark Jackson, who I think should have still been the coach in Golden State, but he got a little reputation as not being he didn't want to confirm, basically. I mean, he didn't want to conform and deal with the staff a lot. And so what happened with Mark Jackson is he was removed out of Golden State. They started talking about his character and all that kind of stuff. So these guys, these young players have to be mindful of that as well. I know we make mistakes sometime when we're young, but eventually those mistakes start to magnify. And then you end up in a situation like a guy where you're untouchable. A guy like Antonio Brown, unlimited skills, but no one wants to give him opportunity because at some point you become a negative for the organization and they start overlooking your skill set. Allen Iverson, at the end of his career, teams didn't want to give him the opportunity. Carmelo Anthony started getting a reputation as the guy that didn't want to come off the bench. And he made a comment on television about to Paul George about coming off the bench. So these are the things that people remember you by. They want to pay you, go out and have good character. And if you add that on to a great skill set, that's a person that can lead a franchise. And those are the kinds of players that people don't mind bending over backwards for to give them the life that they deserve and that their families deserve.
At some point, if you're a so-called trouble child and cause problems in the organization, and at some point, your talent level is going to diminish enough where that team doesn't want to put up with that anymore. And it happens over and over again. And there's also what people don't realize, there's players, the 10th, 11th, 12th man on NBA rosters that lose their jobs because, you know, they're not hard workers. They don't come in early. They don't make friends on the team. They're not a team player kind of guy, and they're not good in the locker room. Maybe there's negativity there, and they lose their jobs, and they're going to bring somebody else in that is going to do pretty much the same thing except be a positive influence. So, you know, all that happens all the time.
You know, guys, I really love doing this show. This is our second show. Many more to come. I got to read this comment from Kayvon. He says, it's a pity that the new era of basketball is no longer ruled by the skyscraping big men like Big Mo did back in the day, who used to combine their size and talented skills on the court in the 80s. That was the best and most exciting time to play basketball. And guys, I know you all hear that coming from the era of the 80s and 90s. What made that so special, such a special time for the NBA? Paul, then Derrick.
Okay, well, I was the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird class. That was my draft class. They were in the top of the first round. I was in the sort of top of the second round. So that was my class. And the NBA had gone through a lot of problems, a lot of public problems, publicity problems. Fans were not happy. TV revenue was down. And those two were a big part of flipping that around. And then it continued with other players. And there were players in that era, Dominique Wilkins, guys like that. But I think at that point, guys like that, guys like me on teams like the Bucks took pride in that the NBA is now looked at as a great league and not a struggling league. And we had a lot to do with that. And I think the ability to accept, not being the star of the team and knowing that, I knew, my whole career, even when I went to the Houston Rockets, Calvin Murphy, Moses Malone, those are the players. I'm there to help them. Then I went to Milwaukee and Sidney Moncrief and Jack Sikma and Terry. I'm there to help them whatever way I can. And that got me through 12 years. And I think that was a big part of the twist of basketball back then. People say we weren't as athletic. Look at MJ, look at Dominique. I mean, come on, man. Look at Daryl Dawkins, God rest his soul. But I think there was a turn in, from going negative to positive that back then in the 80s and then the early 90s that had a lot to do with that view from people.
Hey, Paul, I'm going to put it out there, man. If you look at sports, football, hockey, people like physicality, boxing, UFC. And I think a lot of people, older school, more of our era, they missed that fighting, man, that battling in the trenches under the basket. It was like warfare. I'm not using it in that context. It's like it was that serious. But, under there, anything goes. And you didn't depend on the referee a lot. It was mano y mano, as they say. And I think a lot of people missed that. This are people that missed the hand check. For me, that was the exciting part of the game because I always looked at it. If you could score with someone holding on you and grabbing all on you, then all the work that you put in, all the practice has paid off. And that's the part of the game that we missed today. I still love the game today, but I always wonder what it's like when you out there and you really trying to take a guy's heart. And that's all it's about. It wasn't about friendship then. It was about manning up, you against me. Paul, we get ready to strap it on, as they say. Good luck to you, but you better bring your A game because you're in for a war tonight. And that's what I think a lot of people miss about the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, I used to tell people when they came to games live, you want to see the real action, don't follow the ball. Look under the basket, see what's going on. And also back in those days, it was no secret. I didn't like Charles Barkley. I didn't like Bill Laimbeer. I didn't like Kevin McHale. I respected all of them, but I didn't like them. And I definitely didn't like them on the floor. That was just the way it was. Giving someone a hug or a shake, before the game, you didn't do that. Now it's like everybody's best buddies.
Paul,
hey, Paul, I got to tell you this, Ricky, let me get this in 30 seconds. Sam Bowie, when we played, I'm sure most of the fans remember Mark West played with Cleveland. Sam Bowie told me, he said, Gerv, watch when the game starts. Watch how far Mark West has me under the basket. Watch how he has me pinned all up against the basket support and has my neck all on the basket support. So those are the things that I missed from the game from back in the day.
Well, we got to get out of here. We just got about 30 seconds left. But Paul, you never dapped with anybody before tip-off?
No. I mean, at tip-off, at tip off, you know, you dap somebody, but you didn't like in warm ups or anything. You didn't acknowledge them. You didn't. And if you did, your teammates gave you crap. You know, what are you doing?
Wow.
You know, go have dinner with them afterwards. And I did. There's people in the league I had a fight with during the game, and we went out to dinner and had a couple of beers afterwards, but not before the game, not before or during the game.
Boy, this is great. Hey, man, it has been another great show here on the D.Gerv and Big Mo talk show. All our Facebook friends out there, please keep tuning in. Go to D.Gerv and Big Mo and like us there. We're going to keep bringing stuff your way. Guys, we got to get out of here. Any parting shots?
Yeah, I want everybody to know out there that we're trying to be up on YouTube pretty soon also, so you can catch us there.
Yes.
And on the Facebook page, if you have any questions or comments during the week that you would like to be discussed on our show, just send them in and we'll see them and we'll put them into our show right away. We love your comments, love your input. We want to talk about stuff we love, but also stuff you love. And when it combines like that, then it's a great show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. D.Gerv?
I just want to tell everybody to stay safe out there. Let's kill them with our brains and not with violence. And everyone stay safe.
Well, this is Ricky Hampton saying good night.
You guys have a good night. Have a good night, Ricky. Paul, have a great night. Our audience, great night. You all right, Ricky? See you later, Ricky.